This is a fucking trip. Hi, hello friends and strangers. Welcome back to my channel. And the neighbor's dog started barking, but this is the moment that I at least have small percentage of motivation to film something today. And with that, I am going to talk about the books that I've read last month, June, and I've been putting off filming and editing and just creating this video. I don't know why, I just didn't have the motivation to edit a video. I've been filming things, but I don't have the energy, the drive to edit and post them. I'm going to try to be short, brief, fast about this wrap up because I might just lose the energy and motivation. So I've read a total of 11 books for June, and that includes 1 short story collection, 2 nonfiction books, 7 horror, mystery, and thriller books, and 1 sci-fi novel. The pros and cons of having a booktube, again, I've discussed this in my last video, which features the creators roulette with Critty from Armed with a Book. I've had a good reading month. I just feel like I don't have a good creative month because it really comes and go in terms of motivation. So right now, I just don't have that. Some of the books that I've read for June, I didn't even have a review, even a short one. It really depends on my mood that day, that hour, whatever. So I'm gonna start. The first book that I read for June is How to Pronounce Knife by Suvankam Thamanbongza. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. This book, I gave it 4 stars. It's a short story collection which features different Lao immigrant stories. So not all of these are good stories in terms of like good experiences. So this features the awful experiences, the challenging experiences, and the good experiences as a Lao immigrant. I feel like my only qualm with this book is that I wanted the stories to be longer. I feel like I would read them separately as full-length novels. So with that, I recommend that you pick this book up. Next book that I read is Riding into the Wound by Roxane Gay, the first nonfiction book that I've read for June. I read this as an audiobook, unscribed. I think it's a script exclusive book as well, and it's narrated by the author. So Roxane Gay is famous for her other books like Bad Feminist, something about the body. I forgot the title, but this is the first Roxane Gay book that I've read. Here, Roxane writes about the trauma and the feeling of vulnerability with putting out your story, because you put not only your trauma on the spotlight but others who relate to your experience as well. Roxane Gay talks about personal trauma and collective trauma, specifically the COVID-19 experience. Great book. I gave this 5 stars. Pick it up if you haven't yet. It's a really well written book. Oh, before I forget, sorry. Trigger content warnings for Riding into the Wound. It mentions rape, fat phobia, racism, and police brutality. So, next book. One of my most anticipated thrillers of 2021 is The Lost Village by Camille Sten. I read this as an audiobook as well. Trigger warning. There's cultism, depression, suicide, mentions of autism, psychotic disorder, death by stoning, and sexual assault. So please take that into consideration when picking this book up. Okay, I don't have much thoughts written because I didn't have the motivation again to write notes about the book, but I'm going to read part of the blurb. So The Lost Village is a book about a lot of things: isolation, fear, the terrifying power of groupthink, and how desperation can drive us to do things we never thought we'd stoop to. I gave this book 4 stars. The mystery aspect of it is compelling. It made me want to read more, but I think I gave this just 4 stars because I wasn't wowed or anything by the payoff. And the thing is, for you to enjoy a book, you don't really have to be wowed. I know that, but it just lacked a bit of something. I feel like the ending wasn't fleshed out as well, although the different perspectives and the different timelines were meshed wonderfully. That's why I would still recommend this book to those who are looking into reading a thriller or mystery for this year. Next book I read is Finley Donovan is Killing It, another 2021 anticipated release for me. I had this as an audiobook as well. I remember having so much fun reading this book. So like, imagine that you're a broke writer bargaining with your agent to give you more time to write your story because you're trying to balance out the life you have outside of writing, balancing bills, and dealing with a child custody battle with your husband at the same time. While you're doing that, someone overheard and misunderstood your conversation with your agent, so they thought that you are a murderer for hire. So you are offered $50,000 to murder someone. Are you gonna accept it? It's such a fun book to read. I give this 4 stars. That's it. I had so much fun reading it. Trigger and content warning though. There's murder and blackmailing, violence as well. It's just so fun. It's just pure unadulterated fun thriller. If you're looking for something fun, consider picking up Finley Donovan is Killing It. Okay, the next book that I read, another horror mystery book I've read for the month. It's Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. I saw that this was available in Scribd, so I listened to the audiobook. Frankly, I know that there are killer mannequins, literally, and the whole time that I was reading this book, I just keep thinking that, wow, this is a messed up book, and it's just a whole ass wild and weird, super duper weird fever dream in book form. It's also a very short book, so if you are looking to reading something weird and creepy, and you might want to pick up this book by Stephen Graham Jones. I've read his other book, The Only Good Indians. It had the same creepy, weird vibes, but I feel like with The Night of the Mannequins, since it's such a short book, it's super action-packed from the very beginning. I gave this book 4 stars. I enjoyed it as well, but you don't really need 100% of your 2 brain cells for this, because it's just the whole time it's just you're having like a wild fever dream, and I liked it. So trigger warning for murder and gore violence though. The next book I read is the first volume of Dressa. Okay, so the thing is, I feel like I've read the first 3 volumes already back in around 2017, 2016, and I faintly remember the things that happen, or like the general gist of the Dressa series. So I thoroughly enjoyed the first volume. I've read this because I wanted to watch the Netflix adaptation already, and I wanted to remember the things that I've read before. I had so much fun. I gave this book by Budget Tan 5 stars. Trigger warning, there's murder, gore, mentions of rape, and violence. So if you are a Filipino reader, bibliophile, pick up Dressa if you haven't yet. It's so good. It's so nice to see as well the way that the art style differs from the very first volume up to leading up to the latest ones. Next book that I've read is The Forest of Stolen Girls by Junher, and this is the first Junher book that I've read, and it's definitely not gonna be the last. It's a really good book. Trigger warning though, there's murder, kidnapping, death, mentions of suicide as well. I remember being so obsessed with the writing because it's just so good, so beautifully written, and it's so atmospheric and lyrical. And although the book takes place in 1426 Korea, you could really be immersed with the setting, the world building. It's like you have K-drama, historical K-drama in your head when you're reading this, and it's so good. I'm definitely gonna pick up Junher's other book, and yeah, I give this book 5 stars. Amazing time. Had fun. I also enjoyed the historical inspiration behind The Forest of Stolen Girls. The author's note mentioned the actual events that happened during World War II, wherein comfort women from Korea were trafficked during this time, and they are also called like human tributes. So the author provides historical snippets that you will be able to read at the end of the book, and I think that's just such an amazing touch that I've enjoyed because I didn't really know about this happening during the war. Next book I read is a book by David Sedaris. It's called Themes and Variations. I had a good time reading this. It's such a short and funny book that chronicles David's encounters with interesting people during his book tours. The way he writes coincides with my humor as well, and I had a great time. I think I had a short review of this when I posted my weekend vlog, so you can check that out here. I gave this book 4 stars, had a great time. I'm looking forward to reading his other books. Another book that was featured in that weekend vlog is Halfway to Free by Emma Donoghue. Emma Donoghue is famous for her book The Room, which I haven't read yet. This novella, a sci-fi novella, is part of this Amazon original stories called Out of Line, and this is one of the stories, part of that. And this short story paints a picture of like a not so distant future where the planet is in shambles, and in that future having a kid is a thing of the past. Like, having a kid is taboo. People will judge you if you choose to have a kid because their solution to the destruction that happened to the planet is to not have kids anymore. And it's a very interesting read because we are reading in the perspective of the narrator who was born in this childless society but is dreaming of actually having a baby to raise. So it talks about her weighing the risks of having a baby and not having one, because in this society not having a baby is rewarded more. And yeah, fun times. Give this book 4 stars. Next book that I've read is This Mortal Coil by Emily Sovara, and it's from this Mortal Coil series. I got the book recently, and it's a sci-fi young adult dystopian novel that features this virus, very tiny, this virus that turns people into zombie-like creatures. And I had a great time reading this, gave it 4 stars. Okay, so this book hits very, very close to home because it deals with a viral outbreak and there's a need for a vaccine. Hint, hint. As with other apocalyptic books, this Mortal Coil is also politically charged. I think one of my favorite parts about this book is that it's so well researched and believable. Like the science behind genetic coding and the virus itself is so enticing and compelling to read. I'm usually not good with reading sequels right now because I feel like I'm such a moody reader. No, I don't feel it. I am a moody reader. And it really depends on my mood if I'm going to read the sequel of a series. And I think I will for this Mortal Coil because I'm curious about their having a cure and what would happen with the end of this Mortal Coil. Trigger warning for this book: there's an outbreak, death, violence, mass hysteria, and bombing. The next book I read is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. This is my first Sarah Pinborough book, and she's quite famous on the thriller and mystery genre. This is a fucking trip. I don't know what to feel about the very last plot twist though, but I was completely mind blown, and like, even though I wasn't satisfied by the very last plot twist, I was still mind blown, and I thought that it was a very brutal and brilliant twist to this book. But on the other hand, I think that it was such an overkill. Like, I'm not trying to spoil anything, but the second to the last plot twist was already good enough for me. I feel like it was already satisfying for me, but then the very last plot twist was dropped on me like a bomb, and I'm like, okay, it makes sense. It makes sense. Like, the logic behind it makes sense because it's backed up by the different POVs, especially one POV that supports that. And it's just, it just would have been perfect for me if it weren't for that very last plot twist. And even though I wasn't completely satisfied with the book, it's still good. It was written well, and I am now compelled to watch the Netflix adaptation just for that very last two plot twists. I wanted to see it adapted into TV and see how they managed to pull that off. If you are planning to read this, you have to know that it's very slow-paced. It's a slow-paced thriller which also has some supernatural elements to it. I highly suggest the audiobook instead of like reading it with your eyes. The audiobook narration was great. Take note of the trigger warnings though. There's manipulation, murder, arson, death of family members, as well as animal murder. If you want a slow-paced thriller with supernatural elements and some mind-blowing plot twists, then pick up this book. So Behind Her Eyes is my last book for the month of June. So I only read 10 books for June. So yeah, it was a good reading month for me. Just not motivated to take notes and create videos, but this will happen. I will be able to edit this soon. So I am looking forward to seeing your wrap-ups if you are like me who haven't filmed it yet, because I've already watched the other creators' posts already. So thank you for sticking until the end. I will see you again on my next video. I think that would be my haul video because I'm an uncontrollable bitch. So yeah, thank you for watching. See you again on my next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you, friends and strangers. Bye-bye.